Hi, I'm Nina Murray, and I'm the author of poetry collection Alcestis and the Underworld that is available from Circling Rivers Press. And today I'm recording an essay that I wrote this past April. As you probably know, April is the National Poetry Month, and so my essay riffs sort of on books and the fact that April is also my birthday. So I thought, I have a birthday wish for the National Poetry Month. Here it goes. My birthday falls during the National Poetry Month in the US, and I also happen to be a poet. So when people send me texts, presents, and other nice things for my birthday, I feel like poetry and poets ought to get some of the glow of the attention in which I bask. So this year, I asked my faithful Instagram followers and friends to make it a hashtag Help a Poet Day and post a review of a poetry book that they've read. The National Endowment for the Arts found that poetry readership doubled between 2013 and 2018 to a total of 28 million adults, news that was hailed as dramatic. The surveys used in the study that produced this number did not, however, differentiate between having read a poem or a book of poetry. And I think as poetry readers, we all know the difference. The Seeley Challenge arrived in 2017. If you don't know what that is, look it up. It's great. And poets rejoiced again. After all, if people commit to reading 31 books of poetry in 31 days, that ought to do wonders for poets and their books. The challenge is beautiful, spontaneous, and a powerful thing. It is also very, very hard, and even I don't dare take it on. I only read half a dozen poetry collections last year. I reviewed all of them on blogs, for literary journals, and on Goodreads and Amazon. This is my commitment. I may not read so many books, but I will review every book of poetry I read. And here's why. Americans, despite the hand-wringing we have all heard, are still reading. And the COVID-19 occasioned lockdown is likely to boost the numbers of books read per person. What Americans are reading is a bit harder to pin down. The Census Bureau and the National Endowment for the Arts have been tracking reading trends since 1982. Now, back then, 56.9% of responders said they had read a book of creative literature in the previous 12 months. In 2002, that figure fell to 46.7%. In 2017, the most recent data available, 57% reported they read books not required for work or school, but only 42% specifically said they read novels or short stories. Of the millions of books published in the United States each year, most that make it into the hands of the readers fall into mystery, thriller, or romance categories. When Publishers Weekly did the math for 2020, they found that 4 out of top 10 selling titles were fiction. This is top 10 selling titles overall. Well, before a book ever makes it into Barnes & Noble shelf with a glossy cover and a hefty price tag, it has to be sold 6 times. About 6. Literally and figuratively. The author has to sell the manuscript to the agent. The agent has to sell it to the publisher, specifically to the acquisitions editor. If the acquisitions editor has to get an editorial board's approval, that's 3. 4, the acquisition talks up the book to the marketing department. 5, marketing goes on the road to sell books to the wholesalers or their reps. 6, the buyers at Barnes & Noble sell the book to the merchandisers who decide where in the store it goes, whether it gets a separate display, whether it is allowed to be placed flat on the shelf or just slipped spine out between its fellows. By the time you, dear reader, come into the bookstore with your previously limited, preciously limited disposable income, $24.95 per consumer unit in 2019, which buys you about 1 hardcover, a large group of professionals has labored for months to ensure that your judgment of their product is quick, because after all, your attention span is shortened by all the visual media you're consuming, and positive. In the scrappy world of independent authors, previously known as self-publishing, the game is all about the numbers because that's what algorithms understand. Instead of sending hundreds of queries to literary agents or publishers, the author recruits beta readers. The author sets a release date and distributes advance copy to more readers, of whom at least a few, one hopes, have high visibility on Amazon. The author inevitably gets spam-sounding emails from people who offer to read and review his or her book for a small fee. There are giveaways to manage, ad campaigns to design and run, the Eye of Sauron, the Amazon algorithm to catch. Let's take a closer look. The author wrote a query letter to the agent. It's called the pitch. The author chose carefully a route to the agent who specializes in the kind of book the author has written. Since the author did his or her homework, the agent considered the manuscript carefully, and if it fit with what the agent usually represents and was a competent piece of craftsmanship, the agent took it on and eventually called an editor. Obviously, the agent didn't call just any editor. He or she has done her homework too, and only calls editors who publish the kind of books the agent represents. The editor wrote an internal memo, perhaps to the board, or to the marketing department. In it, he or she certainly mentioned how the book fits with the existing list of previously published titles. On the basis of these, marketing wrote the back cover blurb. The author suggested other authors who might provide advance praise. Marketing also zeroed in on the keywords under which the book is cataloged in the Library of Congress and on bookstore shelves: fiction, women, pregnancy, or Omaha, Nebraska, fiction. These categories help retailers categorize those millions of books that come to them each year. It is understandable that one would want them to be as narrow as possible in order to minimize competition in each niche. And when you're looking for that belated gift for your 12-year-old niece who loves sharks, they save your day because you go marine life, preteen, nonfiction, done. What all this preparation and all these keywords, blurbs, and advanced praises will never tell you is whether the book you're holding in your hands is about to change your world. They won't tell you if you're holding a masterpiece, the defining work of our times, the next great one. They can't. The number of titles published every year is growing, and the portion of the disposable income spent on books is falling. The resources required to attract your readers' attention to a particular book far outweigh those necessary to produce it. The result is further compartmentalization of the supply. This means basically that editors and agents are narrowing their areas of acquisition, just as bookstores are fitting more keywords onto a single shelf, and Amazon's algorithms try to match your reading preferences to your choice of color for your bathroom towels. A medium-sized publishing house might not consider any fiction other than novels set in a particular region, such as the Midwest. Should one of them happen to be the next literary revolution, its success will still depend on the amount of resources the marketing department can throw behind it. And those resources are always limited. At smaller presses, there simply isn't that much money to go around. And at the bigger presses, the cost of the author's advance can swallow a big chunk of the book's budget. How, then, are we readers to choose the books we buy in search of inspiration, enlightenment, or simple entertainment? How do we know we're not wasting our $24.95 or even $2.95 for a Kindle edition? If it is money and only money that you're worried about, the answer is easy. The public libraries in the United States are excellent, thrift stores are outstanding, and little free libraries are adorable. Hashtag little free libraries. If, however, you would like to know what you should read next for reasons of emotional, dramatic, or comic power, you might be at sea. You might, and very well should, turn to places that publish reviews, and I don't mean Goodreads. In the interest of cutting costs, of course, newspapers across the country have cut book review stuff and discontinued relationships with freelancers. One no longer has the luxury of making a living as a literary critic, remember those? Reviewers are volunteers. And just like other volunteers, they do this work because they believe in it. They believe that when they sit down with a book, read it with an open mind, and give you their honest opinion, they do something that no one else will. But remember, none of us are getting paid. Writing a book review is the last thing I add to my schedule, and the first thing I cut when I need time or mental energy for something else. And yet, there are books that simply don't have a chance without a review. How would you begin to imagine what a collection of poetry is like, for example, if someone didn't bother to write about it? Heck, half the time, poets can't tell you themselves. Most, if not all authors, are hardworking people. And I do not for a second mean to imply that the writers of thrillers or romance do not need the attention of reviewers. Everyone does. The truth is that there are good books and not very good books. And if we believe that talent is distributed in a bell curve, then literary quality is similarly distributed across forms and genres. So, all I'm saying, for my birthday and the National Poetry Month and every other month, please read a poetry book. And then, please review it. Thank you.